In April 2026, the United Nations food economist Maximo Torero issued a warning that almost no one in this country reported. He said nitrogen fertilizer costs had risen between 65 and 80% in the span of a few months. He said the impact on food prices would not arrive in years. It would arrive within days, and it would not be temporary. The reason is simple. About 1/3 of the world's fertilizer supply moves through a single waterway in the Middle East called the Strait of Hormuz. Since the start of the conflict in late February of this year, traffic through that strait has effectively stopped. Urea, which is the most used nitrogen fertilizer on the planet, jumped 53.7% in price in a single month. The World Bank has warned that fertilizer prices could rise more than 30% through the rest of 2026. Now you might be asking yourself, what does fertilizer have to do with the bag of rice in my pantry? Everything. Nitrogen fertilizer is what allows American agriculture to produce the volume of grain, beans, corn, soy, and wheat that fills every supermarket shelf in this country. When fertilizer costs jump by 80%, farmers face a choice. They can absorb the cost and burn through their cash reserves, or they can apply less fertilizer and accept a smaller harvest. Either way, the price of every staple food in your grocery store rises. This video is about the 18 foods you need to have in your home before this hits the shelves, not next year. Now, there's also a complete written breakdown of how to build a 120-day food reserve for a family of 4, using only items you can buy at any regular American grocery store. It covers exact quantities, storage methods, shelf life by item, and rotation schedules. The link is in the description. I will get back to it in a minute. And before I list them, I want you to hear something. The window to stockpile at current prices is closing, not in some abstract sense. It is closing measured in weeks. Once retail chains adjust their wholesale contracts to the new fertilizer reality, the prices you see in your local Walmart, Costco, or Aldi will reset. People who stocked their pantry in May and June will look back and realize they bought at prices that no longer exist. The UK food industry has already revised its inflation forecast to between 9 and 10% by December of this year. The United States Consumer Price Index for April hit 332.4. That is near the highest level of the past 12 months. Consumer sentiment dropped to 49.8, the lowest reading in over a year, firmly in recession territory. And I want to be honest about something most channels in this space will not say out loud. There is no version of this where you start in 9 months and you are fine. The fertilizer price increase is already in the wholesale contracts that supermarket chains are signing this quarter. By the time the average shopper notices the price of rice has gone up 40% at their local store, the time to buy at today's prices is already 3 months gone. This is not a doom prediction. This is just how supply chains lag. Wholesale moves first. Retail moves 3 to 6 months later. You are inside that window right now. Let me tell you a quick story. Ron is 58, lives outside Sandpoint, Idaho. Carpenter for 40 years. Built his current cabin himself, 7 acres, off-grid for 9 years now. His wife Janet passed in 2017. His kids are grown and on the coast. When he went off-grid, he had the basics handled. Solar, water from the well, wood heat. What he didn't have was Janet's knowledge. Janet had grown up on a farm in Montana. She knew how to put up tomatoes, how to cure pork, how to do a real root cellar with airflow and humidity control. Ron had eaten the food his whole adult life. He had never paid attention to how it got made. The first winter alone, he tried to preserve a deer. He did it wrong. 3/4 of the meat was unsafe by January. He threw it out. 40 hours of butchering gone because he didn't know what he didn't know. A friend in town, a woman who'd grown up Mennonite, gave him the documentation as a gift. Ron read the section on traditional preservation twice. Most of it was things he'd watched Janet do, finally explained on paper. The salt cure ratios, the drying times, the cellar conditions, the fact that his cellar was too dry by about 15% humidity, which explained why his potatoes had gone soft by February. The fact that you can lose an entire harvest by storing apples next to potatoes because of ethylene. Today, April 2026, Ron is into year 4 of running his property the way Janet would have if she'd lived. He didn't become her. He became someone who could read the knowledge she carried and apply it. The complete documentation costs less than what Ron lost in that first ruined deer. 7 days money back guarantee. Link in the description. When the grid fails, knowledge doesn't. Back to the video, continuing. Here's the list. 18 foods. Every one of them is available at any regular American supermarket right now. Every price I mention is what you can verify yourself this week at Walmart, Costco, Aldi, or Sam's Club. The documentation in the description has the full storage methods and exact quantities by family size. For the video, the items and why each one matters. Number 1, white rice. White rice is the foundation of long-term food storage for one reason. When packaged correctly with oxygen absorbers in Mylar bags, it stays edible for 25 to 30 years. A 25-pound bag of long-grain white rice provides roughly 40,000 calories. That is enough to keep one adult alive for almost 3 weeks if it is the only food they have. It does not need refrigeration. It does not need rotation if sealed correctly. It is the single highest calorie per dollar food in any American supermarket. Buy it now. Number 2, dried beans. Pinto, black, kidney, navy, lima. Dried beans stored in airtight containers in a cool, dark place last 25 to 30 years. A pound of dried beans provides about 1,500 calories and 70 grams of protein. Rice gives you calories. Beans give you protein. Together, they form a complete amino acid profile. This is not theory. This is what kept rural America alive through the 1930s. Number 3, rolled oats. Old-fashioned rolled oats, not instant, stay good for 25 to 30 years when stored in mylar with oxygen absorbers. They are dense in fiber and beta-glucan, which is the soluble fiber that lowers cholesterol. A large container of plain rolled oats from any grocery store costs almost nothing right now. After the fertilizer pass-through hits cereals, that price will not stay the same. Number 4, hard red wheat berries. This is the form of wheat before it becomes flour. Stored properly, hard red wheat lasts 30 years or more. It can be ground into flour with a hand mill when needed. The reason wheat berries beat flour for storage is that flour loses nutrition and goes rancid in 12 to 18 months. Whole berries stay alive, biologically dormant, for decades. Number 5, dry pasta. Vacuum sealed pasta can last 20 to 30 years. The shape does not matter. Penne, spaghetti, elbow, fettuccine. Pasta is processed wheat, and like all dry grain products, it stays stable in low oxygen, low humidity conditions. Buy the simple shapes. They cook fastest and use the least water. Number 6, pure honey. Raw, unfiltered honey is the only food on earth that does not have an expiration date. Archaeologists have eaten honey recovered from Egyptian tombs over 3,000 years old. Honey provides quick energy, has natural antibacterial properties, and works as a wound treatment in emergencies. Buy local raw honey in glass jars. Avoid the cheap squeeze bottles, which are often corn syrup blends. Number 7, white sugar. Plain granulated sugar, stored dry and sealed, lasts indefinitely. It does not spoil. It will harden over time, which means you break it apart, not throw it out. Sugar is calorie dense, useful for preserving fruit, and a major morale food during long emergencies. Buy 10 to 20 pounds and forget about it. Number 8, iodized salt. Salt does not have an expiration date. Period. Iodized table salt is critical for 2 reasons. First, sodium and chloride are electrolytes your body cannot function without, especially in hot weather or during exertion. Second, iodine prevents thyroid problems that develop slowly when iodine intake drops. A canister of iodized salt costs almost nothing. Buy 6. Number 9, powdered milk. Non-fat dry milk powder, sealed in mylar with oxygen absorbers, lasts 20 to 25 years. Powdered milk gives you calcium, protein, and vitamin D when fresh dairy is not available. It is the only practical way to store dairy long-term without refrigeration. The taste is not perfect. The nutrition is. Number 10, canned meat. Canned tuna, salmon, chicken, beef, ham, and corned beef have shelf lives of 3 to 5 years from the date stamped on the can. Some have lasted 30 years in tests by the United States Department of Agriculture, though texture and vitamins decline over time. Canned meat is the easiest emergency protein. No cooking required. 24 cans is a starting point for one person. Number 11, peanut butter. Unopened commercial peanut butter lasts 2 to 3 years past the date on the jar. It is one of the highest calorie per ounce foods in any grocery store. 2 tablespoons provide about 200 calories. Peanut butter does not need to be cooked. It does not need refrigeration if unopened. Buy a case. Number 12, cooking oil. Olive oil, coconut oil, and vegetable oil all have limited shelf lives between 1 and 3 years for sealed bottles, but oil is what allows you to cook the other items on this list. 2 gallons total is the baseline for a family of 4. Rotate every 12 months. This is the one item on the list that does not store forever, but it is critical. Number 13, vinegar. White vinegar and apple cider. Vinegar are both indefinitely shelf stable. Vinegar pickles vegetables, treats minor wounds, sanitizes surfaces, and adds flavor to monotonous food. A gallon costs less than $5 right now. It will not in 6 months. Number 14, dried lentils and split peas. Lentils cook in 15 to 20 minutes without soaking, unlike larger beans that need overnight prep. They store the same way, 20 plus years sealed. They are higher in protein per ounce than rice. They are the fastest legume to prepare, which matters when fuel for cooking is also limited. Number 15, powdered eggs. Freeze-dried or spray-dried whole eggs last 5 to 10 years sealed. 1 can of powdered eggs equals roughly 40 fresh eggs. Eggs are the most complete protein source available. Even 1 egg per person per day, reconstituted from powder, transforms a survival diet from monotonous to functional. Number 16. Bouillon cubes and dry soup base. Chicken, beef, and vegetable bouillon cubes last 3 to 5 years sealed. They turn boiling water into broth, which turns rice and beans into soup. Morale food during a long emergency is not optional. It is the difference between sustaining a family and sustaining tension in a family. Number 17. Instant coffee. Sealed instant coffee from any major brand lasts up to 20 years cool and dry. If you drink coffee daily, going without during a multi-week emergency adds withdrawal headaches and irritability to an already stressful situation. Buy 6 large jars. Cheap insurance. Number 18. Dried fruit. Raisins, dried apricots, prunes, and dates last 2 to 5 years sealed. They provide concentrated calories, fiber, and vitamins, plus a sweetness that prevents food fatigue. Children especially need variety in their diet during stressful times. Dried fruit is the simplest way to give it to them. Now let me get into the part that almost nobody covers. The mistakes. The ways people lose months of stockpile in a single weekend because they bought the wrong thing or stored it the wrong way. The first mistake is buying brown rice instead of white. Brown rice contains the oil-rich bran layer, which goes rancid in 6 to 12 months, even sealed. White rice can last 30 years. The difference between the two is not nutrition. It is shelf life. Buy white. Take a daily multivitamin to cover what the bran would have given you. The second mistake is buying flour instead of wheat berries. Flour goes stale and loses nutrition in 12 to 18 months. Wheat berries last 30 years. If you do not have a grain mill, buy a cheap manual one. $60 on the high end. It pays for itself the first time you use stored wheat that would have gone bad as flour. The third mistake is storing food in cardboard or thin plastic bags. Mice can chew through both in one night. Insect eggs are present in almost all dry grain, dormant until conditions favor them. Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers solve both problems. The oxygen absorbers create an environment where insect eggs cannot hatch and where the smell of stored food does not escape. The fourth mistake is storing in a garage or attic. Temperature swings between summer and winter cut shelf life roughly in half. The ideal storage location is a basement closet, an interior pantry, or under a bed. Cool, dark, and stable. The fifth mistake is buying once and forgetting. Even properly stored food needs rotation for items with 3 to 5 year shelf life like canned goods. The simple rule is first in, first out. New cans go to the back. Old cans get used first. Every 6 months you check the dates. And here's what most preparedness content misses entirely. The mathematics of how much you actually need. A sedentary adult needs about 2,000 calories per day to maintain health. During a stressful period requiring physical activity, that number rises to 2,500. For a family of 4, that means roughly 10,000 calories per day. Over 30 days, that is 300,000 calories. Over 90 days, 900,000. Most people stocking food underestimate by a factor of 3 because they think in meals, not calories. A 25-pound bag of white rice contains roughly 40,000 calories. So one bag feeds a family of 4 for 4 days. To get to a 90-day reserve from rice alone, you need 22 bags. That is the scale. Almost no one thinks at that scale until they start counting. Water is a separate calculation. 1 gallon per person per day, minimum. For a family of 4 for 30 days, that is 120 gallons. There's no way around this number. Food without water is irrelevant. If you have made it this far, drop a comment with the food category you are most behind on. Rice, beans, oil, protein. I read every comment in the first 48 hours and try to answer the specific questions about quantity and storage that come up most. The comments are also where the real conversation happens, because every region of this country has different prices and different supply chains. The Nature Journal published an analysis in May saying that unless governments treat fertilizer production as strategic infrastructure, the world will keep moving from energy shock to harvest failure. The World Food Program warned that 360 million people are facing acute food insecurity this year. This is not a media cycle. It is a structural change in the cost of producing the calories your family eats. The window is the next 8 to 12 weeks before the fertilizer cost increase fully translates into shelf prices. If you are not already subscribed, the channel posts one of these breakdowns every Wednesday. Real data, no fear-mongering, no affiliate links to overpriced freeze-dried buckets. Just what we have learned from documentation and from people who have lived through actual food disruption. Subscribe and the next breakdown lands in your feed automatically. When the grid fails, knowledge doesn't.